Hello dear students, this is Dr. Shabana Begum presenting a talk on the topic energy flow in the ecosystem and the first and second law of thermodynamics pertaining to BSc Zoology 5th semester under the paper entitled Environmental Biology and Ecology. The main learning objectives of this topic being to give the definition of food chains, to identify trophic levels in a food chain, and to illustrate the flow of energy through trophic levels. Here we are going to discuss about the concept of energy in ecosystem, the components of energy flow in ecosystem, ecological energetics, then the laws governing the energy transformation in ecosystem, then the food web, that is the interconnection among organisms, 10% law, ecological pyramidal models, as well as the energy flow models in an ecosystem. I am sure by now you must have understood the meaning of an ecosystem, which is the basic unit in the environment consisting of abiotic and biotic components that interact with each other, exchanging energy and nutrients to form a stable system. Right? This particular diagram will give you an information about a simple ecosystem where there is energy flow. So, the transfer of energy is from the sun and up to each subsequent level of the food chain in an environment. So, each level of energy flow on the food chain in an ecosystem is designated by a trophic level, which refers to the position a certain organism or group of organisms occupies on the food chain. In this schematic diagram of energy flow, one can see easily the sun energy which enters the ecosystem, and the red arrows which are directing are for the energy flow, as well as the green arrows will designate the flow of nutrients. So, the producers which are here, the green plants, then you can always see the primary consumers which are the herbivores, then secondary consumers such as the lizards, etc. Apart from that, you can always see the position of decomposers such as insects, worms, bacteria, etc. Let us discuss about what energy is and the concept of energy in an ecosystem. You know, here energy flow is one of the attributes of an ecosystem. So, every biological activity requires energy. The primary source of this energy is the sunlight. Green plants trap this solar energy and convert it into food energy, which is made available to the animals in turn. Thus, energy from sun flows through the various organisms in all the ecosystems. And this energy is obtained as a result of respiration, where the biological molecules such as glucose are broken down to yield ATPs. The ATP is nothing but adenosine triphosphate, is a compound that breaks down to provide energy for all our activities such as the metabolism, the growth, reproduction, etc. As you can see here, the energy is the ability or capacity to do work. Then, except for the deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem, sun is the only source of energy for all ecosystems on earth. Of the total incident solar radiation, less than 60% is photosynthetically active radiation, that is PAR. Solar energy of sun is types of energy in the ecosystem. This is light energy or radiant energy that is obtained from the sun, heat energy from different sources like the sun and fire, electrical energy, magnetic energy, potential energy, which is also called as the inherent energy, and all the kinetic energy, which is the energy of motion. The various components of the energy flow in the ecosystem are, first, the sun. So here the energy used for all plant life processes is derived from solar radiations, and all animals are further dependent on the plants for their food. About 34% of the sunlight reaching the Earth's atmosphere is reflected back, and 10% is held by ozone layer, water vapor and other atmospheric gases, while the rest 56% reaches the Earth's surface, and out of that only 2 to 10% is being used by plants, and the remaining is absorbed as heat by water or ground. The next component of energy flow are the various trophic levels. First trophic level will be the producers. The green plants in the ecosystem are called producers since they produce or manufacture the food in the process called as photosynthesis using sunlight, carbon dioxide, water and the chlorophyll pigment. In a terrestrial ecosystem, major producers are herbaceous and woody plants. Likewise, primary producers in an aquatic ecosystem are various species like phytoplanktons, algae and higher plants. Then the energy will flow into the next trophic levels called consumers. All animals, they depend on plants directly or indirectly for their food needs, hence they are called consumers, also known as heterotrophs. Again, they are divided into primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, etc., along which the energy flows. Lastly, the decomposers, which are heterotrophic organisms, mainly fungi and bacteria, which meet their nutrient requirements by degrading dead organic matter or detritus, and are also called as the saprotrophs. What is meant by ecological energetics? You know, energy transformation do take place, and these ecological energetics include energy transformations which occur within the ecosystem. And here we consider the quantity of energy reaching an ecosystem per unit of area per unit time. Next, quantity of energy trapped by green plants and converted to chemical energy during photosynthesis. Finally, the quantity and path of energy flow from green plants to organisms of different trophic levels over a period of time is in a known area. That is, the energy flow from producers to consumers. Let us discuss about the two laws which govern energy transformation in an ecosystem. So, the first law of thermodynamics is also called as the energy conservation, that is, the law of conservation of energy. It states that energy can transfer from one form to another, but it cannot be created nor destroyed under any circumstances. This is also true in case of an ecosystem. When an organism dies, its energy is not destroyed but is dissipated in the surrounding through decomposers. So, the explanation goes like this. So, energy is neither created and it always got from another source. The light obtained from the sun is transformed in different ways. The light energy is utilized by plants to manufacture food, and it gets converted into potential energy. When the plants are consumed by the herbivores, the energy gets converted to heat or kinetic energy, and when the animal uses it for its metabolism and other activities, for example, when the carnivores eat herbivores, they utilize the energy from the herbivores. The second law of thermodynamics is stated in different ways. For example, No energy transformation is 100% efficient. Next, no process involving an energy transformation will spontaneously occur unless there is a degradation of the energy from a concentrated form into a dispersed form. Because some energy is always dispersed into unavailable heat energy, no spontaneous transformation of energy into another form is 100% efficient. So, you can say no energy transformation is 100% efficient according to the second law of thermodynamics. Once again, the definition of energy flow through ecosystem actually is the amount of energy that moves along the food chains. This energy flow is also known as calorific flow. The energy flow in the ecosystem is important because to maintain an ecological balance. Let me tell you what food chains are. So, food chains will give you the linear relationship between producers and consumers in an ecosystem where there is transfer of energy from one trophic level to the next with the process of eating and being eaten. Then food chains are mainly of three types: grazing or herbivorous food chain, detrivorous food chain, and parasitic food chain. What are trophic levels? We know these are the representations of organisms' position in food chain. For example, the green plants represent the first trophic level in any ecosystem. The herbivorous animal, which are called as primary consumers, represent the second trophic level. Secondary consumers and tertiary consumers occupy the third and the fourth trophic levels respectively. The number of trophic levels therefore ranges from 3 to 5. Lesser the trophic levels, higher is the conversion of efficiency. In the slide, you can see there are interconnections among organisms. So, all the organisms in an ecosystem are connected in a very intricate manner, and the energy flow occurs through these interconnections, which are also called as food web. These interconnections can be depicted by food chains to understand the basic connections between organisms. There are many types, as I told you, of food chains operating in nature, which are again the grazing food chain, detritus food chain, parasitic food chain, etc. Next, let us discuss about the 10% law. So, Raymond Lindemann in 1942 gave the concept of 10% of energy flow transfer or law or Lindemann's trophic efficiency rule in food chains. It's also called as 10% law. According to this law, during the transfer of organic food energy from one trophic level to the next higher level, only about 10% of the transferred energy is stored as flesh. Now let us assume that the plants or producers have 10 joules of energy. According to 10% law, only 1 joule of energy will be available for transfer to next trophic level, that is herbivores. And 10% of 1 joule, that is 0.1 joule of energy is available for the carnivores such as lions. Here once again about the trophic levels, the various steps in a food chain at which the transfer of food or energy takes place are called trophic levels. Example, a food chain operating in a grassland is given below. Like such as at the basic level, you can think of grass, which is nothing but the autotrophs, the producers, then the insects, which are the herbivores, then carnivores are there followed by them, then there are secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, etc., which form the frogs and the birds in a grassland ecosystem. It is clear from this picture that there is always a 10% of energy which is made available for the next level. Some of that energy is also lost through heat. Thus, when a predator eats that consumer, all of the energy the consumer gained from the plant is not available to the predator. It has been used and lost. There are different energy flow models, one of them being Y-shaped energy flow model, which is given by H.T. Odum in the year 1956. In this model, one arm describes the herbivorous food chain, that is grazing food chain, and the other arm describes the decomposers or detritus food chain. There is always the respiration during which there is loss of energy taking place. This is again regarded as more realistic as it conforms to the basic stratified structure of ecosystems and separates the two chains. Two chains are the grazing food chain and the detritus food chain. Another very important aspect one has to think of is the ecological pyramids. So, a study of the successive levels of food chains in terms of energy flow, biomass and number of individuals at different levels clearly shows that there will be a decrease in the availability of energy, biomass and number of individuals from autotrophs to the primary, secondary and tertiary consumers. Since there is a gradual decrease of energy, biomass and numbers starting from autotrophs to carnivore consumers at different levels, the plants and animals in the food chain may be arranged into what are called as ecological pyramids. These are also called as trophic pyramids, Eltonian pyramids, energy pyramids or sometimes food pyramids. It's a graphical representation designed to show the biomass at each trophic level in a given ecosystem. The representations of flow of energy through an ecosystem in the form of pyramids are called the energy pyramids. The pyramid which shows the relationship between the number of producers, herbivores and carnivores at successive trophic level are called as the pyramid of numbers. There are also classified as upright pyramids, for example, the pyramid of energy, and inverted pyramids, that is the pyramid of parasitic food chain. So, the pyramids are called as inverted pyramids when the number can be found in an ecosystem where the community contains a few producers with a very large biomass that support a large number of smaller consumers. It can also be found in an ecosystem where the community contains parasites. So, there are certain limitations to these inverted pyramids. That is, it does not take into account the same species belonging to two or more trophic levels. It assumes a simple food chain and does not accommodate a food web. Then saprophytes and decomposers are not given any place in ecological pyramids. Very interesting subtopic being the pyramid of energy, which is of interest to us. So, an energy pyramid is a model that shows the flow of energy from one trophic or feeding level to the next in an ecosystem. The model is a diagram that compares the energy used by the organisms at each trophic level. As I have already told you, the pyramids of energy are always upright. Since energy is lost at each trophic level, an ecosystem without sufficient primary productivity cannot be supported. You should be in a position to tell me where the most energy is found in an energy pyramid. So in all the ecological pyramids, producers, that is the organisms that produce their own food, are found at the lowest trophic level. This trophic level contains the highest amount of energy. The energy in each trophic level of an energy pyramid is just 10% of the energy in the level below it. Finally, a very important energy flow diagram, which is also called as a simplified energy flow diagram depicting 3 trophic levels, can be very clearly seen in this slide. It's a diagrammatic representation, though it is very important to show the flow of energy and also to give the importance of the 2 laws of thermodynamics which operate in the ecosystem. This is also called as organ pipe diagram, which show energy flows in an ecosystem, and it is governed by the laws of thermodynamics. You can say the principles of food chains and the working of 2 laws of thermodynamics can be clarified by means of flow diagrams. In these, the boxes represent the trophic levels and the pipes depict the energy flow in and out of each level. In a simplified energy flow diagram, standard notations for successive energy flow are as follows. The capital I, which gives you the amount of total energy input. Capital LA is equivalent to the light absorbed by plant cover. Capital P and G will give you the gross primary production. Capital A is the total assimilation. Capital P and N will give you the information about the net primary production. Only P, capital P, will give the information about the secondary production by the consumers. Capital N and U will be equivalent to the energy not utilized or used, which is the energy stored or exported. Capital N and capital A will give you the information about the energy not assimilated by the consumers, while capital R will give you the information about respiration. While the bottom line in the diagram shows the order of magnitude of energy loss expected at major transfer points, starting with a solar input of 3000 kilocalories per square meter per day. From the diagram, it is clear that energy flow is greatly reduced at each successive level, regardless of whether we consider the total flow or the components. The diagram also showed the double metabolism of producers, that is the gross and the net, and the approximately 50% absorption by plants cover and 1% conversion of light at first trophic level. Secondary productivity P2, P3 tends to be about 10% at successive consumer trophic levels, although efficiency may be higher, that is 20% at carnivorous level. As we know, the first law of thermodynamics states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but can simply change from one form to another. The first law can be seen operational in the living system when the study energy flow. The radiant energy from the sun is absorbed by green plants. This energy of sun is converted into electric energy in the chlorophyll molecules. This electrical energy is further converted into chemical energy by synthesis of complex organic molecules and also by the synthesis of ATP molecules. Heterotrophs feed on plants and thus chemical energy flows into them. The heterotrophs recover the energy stored in the chemical compounds during the final stages of respiratory process, and this recovered energy is stored in the terminal bond of ATP molecules. When this bond is broken down, the chemical energy will be converted into kinetic energy or energy of action or motion, which is necessary for all life activities. Thus, a series of energy changes takes place in the living systems, demonstrating the operation of first law of thermodynamics in living things. So, according to second law, during the energy transformation, large part of energy is degraded into heat and dissipates itself. This can be clearly illustrated in living systems by the study of pyramid of energy. There is a decrease in the availability of energy flow from the lower to the higher trophic level. This is due to considerable loss of energy in the form of heat during energy flow from one organism to another. Thus, energy flow and the energy conversion in living systems strictly conform to the first and second law of thermodynamics. What is the outcome of the study? Here you can see the organisms in an ecosystem acquire energy in a variety of ways, which is transferred between trophic levels as the energy flows from the bottom to the top of the food web, with energy being lost at each transfer. Energy flow determines the upper limit of the production of biological resources. The first and second laws of thermodynamics tell us the limits of energy production and efficiency. Energy flow in an ecosystem is always unidirectional, and energy in an ecosystem is never destroyed, but it is converted from one form to another. Only 10% of energy is passed to the successive trophic level. So, the efficiency of these transfers is important for understanding the different behaviors and eating habits of warm-blooded versus cold-blooded animals. Modeling of ecosystem energy is best done with ecological pyramids of energy, although other ecological pyramids provide other vital information about ecosystem. Thank you.